Hello crafty friends, this is the Paper Chef here. In today's Brother ScanNCut tips and tricks tutorial, you are going to cut out embossed snowflakes. You will use your CM350 or ScanNCut 2. You can follow along with whichever model of ScanNCut you have. And we're going to start out by heat embossing the snowflakes because I get asked this question a lot. How do you cut out embossed images, embossed stamped images? Well, really, it's the same way as cutting out any stamped images, but I thought it'd be fun to go through the process. I'm going to use Snowflake Wishes stamp set because I thought that I had dies for all of these snowflakes, and really I only have dies for maybe 2 of these. So I was cutting these out anyway, and it's the time of year where I thought I better start doing some heat embossing and getting ready for holiday card making. So that's where I came up with, let's show my crafty friends how to heat emboss the snowflakes and how to cut them out. So we're going to use, this one was a good one, this particular stamp. It was a really good one, and the reason it was good is because it's connected. You have to make sure your snowflakes are connected and that they're big. Don't try to do this one because it's too many little scattered dots. This one's I would do, but I already have a die for that one. Actually, that one was too big for my projects too, I think. I can't remember exactly which dies I have at the moment, but this one worked good. This snowflake worked good. This little snowflake here looked too much like a Halloween. It looked like bones, which is kind of cool, and I'll show it to you. But I wouldn't use that one. We have enough though for the example. Okay, we have enough snowflakes for my example because you get the idea. We'll do a couple of each. We'll just mount them. I have this one already mounted. We'll mount this one. You're just going to take them and mount them onto a clear block. I'll get one more clear block. This is my personalized clear block. All right, we're going to stick the snowflake on there. So to heat emboss, I'm going to use, for the whole, this concept is we're using Night of Navy cardstock. And the concept is you're going to be heat embossing with white embossing powder. So what I like to do, I don't think we sell these anymore. This is called an Embossing Buddy. It's kind of like, see how I'm just pounding it to get the powder out. You probably can make your own. I think it's like talcum powder. I'm not even sure what it is. Feel free to comment in the description. But what it does is it keeps the powder, keeps it from like clinging onto the cardstock, the powder, the loose powder, and it just gives it a sharper image. All right, so now I'm going to take Versamark. I call this invisible ink. That's what I call tell my craft club when they're doing this. Hey, you're using invisible ink. Watch it appear. And that's when I'm talking to kids. But I think it'd be fun to talk to you and call it invisible ink too. So it's basically just the ink that we're going to use to make our powder stick to. Okay, see that? Now while it's wet, I want to go ahead and put some powder on these because you don't want to wait for them to dry and do them all. Yes, it's a hot mess, my little situation here, but what you have is you have a little jar of powder. The powder I'm using is white Stampin' embossing powder. And every time I do an embossing tutorial, I get hundreds of different comments about how different people emboss, which is great. I use these little spoons that you get from like when you're trying the ice cream sample, and I don't just go get spoons from them. I say, hey, can I try an ice cream sample? And then they let me try the ice cream sample, and then I save the spoon. Instead of throwing it away, I bring home the little tiny spoons, and I use them for my crafting. And so what I do, and then I go to the Dollar Tree, and I get some little makeup brushes. I'd like to hear all your little tips and tricks too. Do you use an Embossing Buddy? How do you brush off your excess powder? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and heat emboss these right now. And then I'll get back to stamping the others in just a minute because I want to show you this. Never heat emboss with the excess powder under you. I've done it, been there, done it. Also, close your Versamark. You want to heat emboss. You don't want to heat up like your stamp and your Versamark. Okay, so we have an embossing tool, and it's going to send out very hot air. You can use the lower or the high setting. I like to use the high setting, the 2, and I like to use a clothespin so I don't burn my hand. Okay, so something like that. Now what I do is I turn it on to 2. Okay, and I do this sort of rolling motion. Now You gotta watch because it's actually magical. How the white, it's gonna get really stark white. And let me make sure I'm in focus here. So, okay, so you can see that. I have to be able to focus up here. Here we go. All right, I'm moving it higher, closer to the camera. So what you're gonna see is I'm doing even heat, but at one point it just sort of, see that? Did you see that? I love it, I love it, love it. It just turns white. It all happens at once, and then you're done. I go another few seconds for good measure. All right, the reason I did that, and now I'm going to do the others together, is to show you. We're going to look at the before and after you emboss. Okay, and the reason we had to get rid of all that extra little powder is you don't want the ScanNCut to recognize that. Well, it's not going to recognize this tiny piece because it's a little small. And by the way, these make great card backgrounds, and I'll show you some in my Ink It Up series. I'm going to show you how to make a snow scene with some trees for your backgrounds using embossing. But for now, we're going to cut these out because these make great embellishments. All right, so now let's continue. You get the idea. We're going to cut these out with the ScanNCut. I always stamp 2 of everything because I want to make sure, in case we don't get a clean image, that we at least get 1 snowflake. Okay, I could put the powder on while it's wet, but I only have a couple more snowflakes to do. We've already done that one. So I'm gonna, now this does stay wet pretty long. You know, but it's like you don't want to wait more than like a minute because you don't want this to dry. Oh, and by the way, if you just like this really cool look like that, then go ahead and use clear embossing powder. And you'll get that, and it'll come up and it'll like push up and it'll give you a nice shiny look. We'll do a big snowflake or 2, whatever fits on this paper that I have here. Because we'll do one more for good measure because we never want to waste a good piece of cardstock. So by the way, this is Night of Navy. I think I might have mentioned it. Night of Navy cardstock. So even if you did nothing else, you could use clear embossing powder. And I'm using white though because I'm doing snowflakes. And I get asked all the time, about the different kinds of embossing powders. Well, we have one that's a glittery one, and I don't risk. Here, I'm going to use my little spoon on this side. See, and I know I'm going to get comments about the papers. I know some of you probably use papers underneath. I sometimes use papers underneath too, like these kind of big papers. So I mean, I'd like to hear all the different things you use underneath. This is a Taco Bell. I bought some nachos to go. And it was a nice big tray, and that's why I'm using that one. It's from Taco Bell, a nacho tray. So, save your trash. You can use it for other things. And then now it looks good. And then what I do is I turn it over and I flick it. I don't even remember where I learned to heat emboss. I've been doing it for many years, and it just, over time, I figure out ways to deal with this powder. But I know I use too much powder. I know there's a way to salvage some of that powder. All right, so the reason I did that is to show you the difference. Look at that difference between the ones that have not been heat embossed and the ones that have been. So I'm going to go ahead and heat those up now. I'm going to heat the rest of these up. And again, use your clothespin. And don't use a wooden clothespin because you don't want to start the clothespin on fire. This is really, really hot. And don't leave your heat tool plugged in. Okay, when you're done with it, put it away. Now I'm using a circular motion. And some like to heat emboss from below. I've never got that to work. I only heat emboss from above. But if you get that to work, that's good. I like to know about that too. Because really, we can all learn from each other, different techniques. Okay, they're changing color. My little tips and tricks have evolved over the years. And as you can see, I didn't even touch that one. It was already, just by being in the close proximity of the other one, it heated up. And I have one left, and just watch that magic. Watch that magical change. Now you don't want to burn your paper, but I like to go over them all for good measure. I like to just do that. Make sure they're all really sealed. So just for good measure, I like to go over them is what I was saying. All right, so we're ready to do, I'm just flattening out the paper. We're ready to now work on the ScanNCut and cut these out. And you want to take your embossing powder, trust me on this one. If you don't have time to clean it up, which I'm definitely not going to, what I'm going to do is try to get the genie back in the bottle, and I'm going to try to get all this stuff back in the jar, okay? And you can close your jar all you want, but you need to put this on the floor, trust me. Don't keep this on the table with your ScanNCut. You'll knock the whole thing onto the floor, and you'll be picking up particles for a long time. So I'm putting the embossing powder on the floor so I don't accidentally knock it off my table while I'm using the ScanNCut. But I'm done embossing. Happy with that. Now, why am I using my CM350? Well, because my customers asked me to. A lot of you have the CM350. My team members and customers, you requested me to do it more often with the CM350. And the other reason is, quite frankly, this machine here, the CM350 ScanNCut 2, does a better job at cutting detailed images like this than my STX machine or my CM300. I have 3 ScanNCuts. This by far does the best job at cutting details like this. Now, there's other things that my other machines do well, but cutting details is not one of them. So what I'm doing is I'm putting some painter's tape on there to hold this tight so it scans in well. See, the paper's a little buckled. But you never want to put painter's tape around the corners here because you don't want this whole thing to be scanned in as a rectangle. And because otherwise it'll just be recognized as one big rectangle. You want each snowflake to be recognized separately. And you never want to cover the registration marks because the scanner needs those. All right, so that's good. And I might put a little piece up there. Now, you don't have to put painter's tape if your mat's very sticky. I've been cutting a lot of snowflakes. I'm going to be showing you some projects I created with these snowflakes right after we cut these. So here we go. You turn on your machine, and you're going to see, this is the CM350 again, the ScanNCut 2. You're going to turn on your machine, and you're going to see pattern and scan. Okay, you're going to see pattern and scan. You want to select scan. Right? You want to select direct cut because we're going to directly cut out these snowflakes. And you want to save the information temporarily to your machine. And you want black and white recognition mode. The reason you want black and white recognition mode is you have good contrast. We have white snowflakes on night of navy background. Very good contrast. So you can use black and white recognition mode. If you don't have good contrast, you could use color mode. But right now, black and white is fine. And the where you change that is when we were recognizing it, there was a little grayscale box, and you can change it to color. All right, so now we're going to say okay and see what happens. Okay, it got most of my snow, not really most, but it got the snowflakes over here. It could be that my mat's dirty. So I did stamp 2 of each, so I'm going to go for it and just get the ones that it worked out. And it could be that I think the tape was too close to the side of the mat, not recognizing this whole connected area. But it doesn't really matter why they didn't get selected. That's the reason I stamped more than one of each. So now what we do is now what I want to do is just cut out these particular snowflakes. And the ScanNCut recognized all these dirt all over the mat. So we can ignore that dirt, those pieces, by making a selection around the area we want to cut. We can also ignore the object size by going into this function here and ignoring objects that are smaller than our snowflakes. Don't ignore objects that are too big because you'll make your snowflakes disappear. The smallest snowflake's about 3/4 of an inch, so it's safe to ignore objects smaller than my smallest snowflake. And then once we do this, this is adding an outline distance. Once you add an outline distance using that feature and click OK, it forgives. It's more forgiving. You might get rid of smaller bits you don't want. If we still have bits we don't want after I say OK, I can go in here and edit them by clicking in this edit function and going in here and trashing any bits I don't want. I'm very happy with this. It selected enough snowflakes for me to give you the idea, and we're going to select cut. I never worry if things don't get selected right away and scanned. I never worry, because what I do if they don't get selected this time is I take some of that tape off, which may have been too close to the edge of the mat. I'm just going to go ahead and click cut. And I have to tell you about the blade depth, and I'll come back. Okay. When you're cutting cardstock from Stampin' Up, You're going to use a blade depth of 5, okay? Which means it's just sort of sticking out the bottom. See that? Blade depth of 5. If you're using an SDX machine, you'll use an auto blade. All right, so the reason I never worry about things not all being selected is I had a piece of tape over here. If it was too close to the edge of the mat, that piece of tape was considered something too close to the edge. Also, parts of the mat could be dirty, and parts of the scanning plate could be dirty, and not all parts of your mat are recognized. So later I can take that sheet of snowflakes and move it to another part of my mat, and I'll have better luck at getting recognized. All right, it's going to take 2 minutes to cut these. I'm on a blade depth of 5. Again, use auto blade and the default settings if you're using an SDX. I'll see you in a couple minutes, and we'll come back and I'll show you how to remove these from the mat and the projects you can make using embossed snowflakes. See you soon. Click start. When it's finished cutting, you're going to say okay, and then you're going to go ahead and unload the mat. That is this button here. And it's going to say, when unloading, the mat may shift, okay? So we say okay. I probably should have checked that they cut first before I unloaded the mat, but we are having faith that they did. I'm going to turn on my light now. So let's see. Yeah, we had the blade depth of 5, and they did cut right in all my trials. Okay. So you now remove your tape, and you're going to remove your snowflakes. So you can use your little spatula. Okay, and that's a great job. So now you have all these really cool, let me close this. Let me close my ScanNCut. You have all these really cool embellishments that are embossed. So you have embossed snowflakes with already built-in little borders around them, outline distance. Okay, now Night of Navy is what we call, it's in our neutrals collection. Let me just put this down so you can see some contrast. So meaning these go with anything. They'll go with any of your snowflakes blender paper. They'll go with, it's just a neutral color, so it'll go with anything that you want to put these on and to embellish with. So those are beautiful, and I cut out a bunch earlier and I did some decorating with them, and that's what I would like to show you. Okay, again, we use Snowflake Wishes stamp set to get the snowflakes. If you love snowflakes, that's the way to get lots of snowflakes at once. We use Versamark ink. There's a refill for that. I used an Embossing Buddy, which is retired, but some of you might have it. I use Night of Navy cardstock. What else? I use the heat tool. Okay, and now I'm going to show you some other things. And I don't have them all here because I don't have a lot of room, but I just want to show you everything, and I'll just tell you the names of the products, and I'll put them in the description as soon as I get a chance. Okay, so this is a Mini Curvy Keepsake Box. Mini Curvy Keepsake Box is my favorite little die from the annual catalog. And I like how you can make the snowflakes. They're nice and stiff because they're made of cardstock as opposed to designer series paper. So I stuck it up there, and it's just kind of suspended with a 3D dimensional. Okay, I put a little piece of twine, and the Mini Curvy Keepsake Box has these little tags that go with it. And I'll just show you how much you can fit inside because I get asked all the time, what can you put inside these? And by the way, the Happiest of Holidays stamp set is from Merry Moose. Merry Moose is a set that I like to work with a lot. So to get this open, this little box, you're going to push down and sort of lift that open like that. Okay? And Happiest of Holidays, and it just have little mini Tic Tac and a caramel Werther's, which is just a little piece of heaven. Okay, so that's one way to use the snowflake. I said I had 4 projects to show you, and I was going to see if I had the Merry Moose. No, it's not close by. Oh wait, here it is. This is a great stamp set. It's a returning favorite, meaning it was in our holiday catalog last year, and now it returned to be part of our mini catalog. So where's that? Happiest of Holidays. It fits on this little sentiment there, and you can punch it out with what's called the classic label punch. Of course, you can make your own shapes with the ScanNCut as well. All right, now this is my favorite die. This little die is my favorite die inside of the holiday catalog or the 2020 mini catalog. And here's how you can use those embossed snowflakes to decorate your little mini. This is not mini, it's called the little treat box dies. One of the things about the Snowflake Splendor Designer Series paper, which this is that again, it has Night of Navy in the color. I think I put the same things inside here. Yeah, I put mini Tic Tacs. You can actually put more in here. You can fit like Hershey Nuggets and different things. This one has a lot more room. You can see in there. I hope you can see in there. It's just a great little die. In fact, I want to open this up in case you're new to my channel. I use this die a lot on my channel. This is wire mesh ribbon, also in our catalog. But see, check out this die. It's so easy. You cut it out in one piece. You cut it out. It's just so easy to assemble. I have loads and loads of these ready to go. Okay, so that's another way to use these cute little embossed snowflakes. And I've made lots of them, and I'm going to use them for other things. And I also was cutting out snowflakes while I was at it, just like this. And by the way, I embossed these snowflakes using Blueberry Bushel as well, which is a retired type of a retired color of cardstock. But I actually like the way they came out with the Night of Navy. A little better than that's Balmy Blue. So I have a little bucket of these. So what you do, and this is the one I was telling you about the bones. I didn't want to cut any more of these because they look like a bone, which is good for Halloween, but it doesn't really look like a snowflake. Okay, so get yourself a little bucket of embellishments, and then you can just decorate all your projects at once. Okay, now this one is a Diaper Fold Treat. Okay, this is a Diaper Fold Treat. And Thank You Snow Much comes from this stamp set. Thank You Snow Much. It looks smaller because this is a double stamp set, which I keep forgetting about. And so it actually appears bigger, see, than it does on the front. And this die is from another set from the Heartwarming Hug Suite. And then there are my 3 snowflakes. And you can get tea that matches your different diaper folds, and there's your snowflake splendor paper. And that's one way to use your little embellished snowflakes. And here's my favorite project. It's a card, and it's called May Your Season Sparkle. Again, that from the Snowflake Wishes stamp set, the sentiment. I used the Falling Snow embossing folder in the background with all these extra snowflakes on them. Some are cut out with Balmy Blue glimmer paper with die cutting, and then these are cut out with the ScanNCut, these two. Embossed the way you just learned how to do that. And so you can use a combination of your ScanNCut, your dies, your embossing. Here are little snowflake adhesive sequins that we sell. And this little paper in the background is called frosted floral paper. And I put some of the snowflake splendor paper in the inside because I love the watercolor wash. And I'm using that Night of Navy cardstock. Okay, so one more thing before we go, and I appreciate you watching me today, is that if you want to make your own designer series paper, you can take our designer series paper and emboss snowflakes onto it, and you'll have your own designer series paper, which then you can turn into a diaper fold if you want. You can turn this into card backgrounds. Okay, so what is this piece here? This is one of our new ink colors called Misty Moonlight. And on the back, that's what's on the back. Because this paper here that I'm holding is part of the Flowers for Every Season designer series paper. Okay, so I really like how this came out. Now, if you were going to make a diaper fold, you would have this part sticking out on the inside. So I'd probably use this more for a card background. I'm not really sure what I'm going to use it for yet, but I just liked how I was playing around with it, making my own designer series paper out of embossed snowflakes. So I wanted to share that with you. All right, well, that's all for now. I hope you give this a try. I hope you emboss some snowflakes and use your ScanNCut to cut them out precisely for you, especially when you don't have the dies to go with them. And then you can do all kinds of projects and have a lot of these on hand. Well, that's all for now. This is the Paper Chef. See you next time.